insurance companies are not renewing policies or canceling policies, or new homeowners are having a really challenging time finding insurance in order to be able to close on a purchase.
The significant level of destruction that's taken place in California has really driven this issue, not just in Nevada, but across the Western U.S. It's getting more and more of a challenge, but if you're a dogged and determined, there is, I think, still carriers that are writing out there, and I think it's worthwhile for consumers to do a little bit of legwork.
Welcome back to Nevada Realtors Today, your place for timely updates on the news and trends that matter to realtors in the Silver State. Now let's join your Nevada Realtors President, Brandon Roberts, and Nevada Realtors CEO, Tiffany Banks, for today's episode of Nevada Realtors Today.
Scott Kipper was appointed as Nevada's insurance commissioner effective February 27th of 2023. As commissioner, Kipper is charged with protecting consumers' rights and the public's interest in dealings with the insurance industry. We are very grateful and blessed to have you join the Nevada Realtors today for some discussion. We also have our lobbyist, Jenny Reese, here with us from Carrera, Nevada, and Grant Meyer, our state treasurer, as well as my amazing co-host, Brandon Roberts, our state president. Grant, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Scott, thanks for joining us today. So all across the state of Nevada, we're hearing from homeowners and HOAs that their insurance companies are not renewing policies or canceling policies, or new homeowners are having a really challenging time finding insurance in order to be able to close on a purchase. Can you tell us what are the primary factors driving these insurance companies to cancel policies out in Elko and Battle Mountain, up in Lake Tahoe, in the Galena, Reno area, and we're even hearing down in Las Vegas?
Well, first of all, Grant, Tiffany, Jenny, Brandon, thanks for having us from the division on today. I think it's really important for us to have an opportunity to share the information that we're looking at and we're dealing with. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to visit with you all today. Grant, in response to your questions as to, what is driving insurers to behave the way that they're behaving, there's a number of factors. I think first and foremost is the fact that our environment is changing. We did not have this issue 10 years ago, 15 years ago. This is my third role or third time in this role. And, the previous two were, really focused on health insurance. Now that seems to be the easier insurance compared to what's going on in the property and casualty world. But the environment is certainly one of those that is challenging. The fact that we live in close proximity, especially here in northern Nevada, to our neighbor to the west, and the challenges of wildfires and the significant level of destruction that's taken place in California has really driven this issue, not just in Nevada, but across the Western U.S. It is also, part of the issues is the level of natural disasters that are going on across the country and literally around the world. The convective storms and tornadoes, certainly the issues around hurricanes are driving extreme claim costs to insurers, but more importantly, it's driving the cost of reinsurance to go up. That cost of reinsurance is distributed to all of those who purchase reinsurance, and that's almost everybody in the marketplace. And that's why we're seeing some of these challenges in costs. One of the other thing that we've in discussion with insurance companies is that they feel in some sense that their footprint or level of concentration is too big in certain areas. And what I mean by that is in the past, or even currently, in any particular area, you may have one insurance company that has insured 4 or 5 properties in a very small neighborhood. And what we've seen in California is that insurer in the event of a catastrophic fire, like we saw in Paradise, for example, that insurance company took a significant hit to their bottom line, or more practically, that reinsurer ended up having some significant claims. So that is why we're seeing in this event more carriers non-renewing, or what they feel like they're right-sizing their footprint. Those are only two factors, but those are the primary ones that we're seeing.
So, Scott, with more and more carriers, pulling out of different areas of our state, how do we prevent that from happening in the future? Right? Isn't the concentration just being put more and more on individual companies? I mean, up in our area, like Tahoe, we're only seeing maybe 3 carriers that can insure at all. So we're seeing an even higher concentration moving forward, and in just a handful of companies.
We have done 2 data calls here at the division. Actually, we've done 3, but the first 2 data calls that we performed was trying to get some information as to what's going on in the personal lines. That's the homeowners marketplace. We did one at the end of 2022. We did another at the end of 2023, and we have plans to do another one here at the end of 2024, trying to make sure we understand the trends and what's going on in the marketplace. One of the things we saw is, yes, there is a large increase in the number of non-renewals. And again, I know we're talking about data that may be 10 months old, but we went from double digits non-renewals in 22 to around 500 non-renewals in the end of 2023. So that the absolute number, significant, but and the trend certainly is troubling. But what I'm trying to say is, we're still seeing carriers underwrite those risks and claims. One of the other things that we have done for consumers is to create a spot on our website to let the consumers know which companies we're still writing in particular zip codes. So you can go to it's a lookup tool on our website, which is doi.nv.gov, and you can go to your this particular lookup tool, enter your zip code and the number of the companies that are still writing, and the contact information will pop up for you. Now, we understand that there's some carriers that have since kind of backed down a little bit, but there are still carriers that are writing, and we would encourage consumers to utilize that tool. One of the other things that we'd like to see consumers do is to utilize their individual brokers and or individual insurance agents or producers to foster and find some assistance. I heard a anecdotal story from a friend yesterday that it was looking for a condo ownership in others, or condo insurance in another neighboring state, and they had to go through 7 different brokers and looked at 75 different companies in order to generate 3 claims or 3 quotes. It's getting more and more of a challenge, but if you're a dogged and determined, there is I think still carriers that are writing out there, and I think it's worthwhile for consumers to do a little bit of legwork in order to find coverage.
Scott, some of the challenges our consumers are running into is the insurers that are offering coverage are requiring very extreme defensible space requirements around the property. One of the companies in particular, I won't name names, will cover temporarily for a couple weeks until the homeowner can provide an inspection by this insurance company to show that everything within 10 feet of the structure is completely clear of vegetation. It's getting so strict that one homeowner had to dig up their lawn within 10 feet of the property because the grass was determined to be vegetation. What is the state doing to kind of help these insurers get through some of these challenges, some of these kind of arcane requirements that they're putting on our homeowners here in the state?
Well, there's a couple things. Mitigation, which is the issue you're talking about, is becoming more and more popular with consumers and with carriers. There is a voluntary mitigation program in the state where carriers would be providing a discount if a home or a property is done the defensible space and properly mitigated any challenges from an extreme fire. Again, this is voluntary, but even over the last couple of months, now we're seeing carriers take up that charge and are offering those discounts. In the example that you used, where yes, they'll offer you a binder or coverage, but they also are going to make sure and come back and inspect that property that it meets the standards that they're looking for. This is really not anything brand new. In the past, carriers would have either the agent or the broker come out and walk the property with the owner or the person who is buying the insurance to make sure that those risks are identified and provide some guidance for those consumers to say, you can, if you move that wood pile, for example, away from your home and stack it 15 feet further away, that mitigates the opportunity for that wood pile to catch on fire and burn right up the wall. So that's not new, but the fact that they're saying that now you've got to mitigate in order to meet an issuance of a policy is something that the carriers are doing, and I think it makes good consumer sense. So the consumers become aware of those challenges. I think your example of digging up the yard is a little extreme, but in the event there is a fire, that certainly becomes a hazard.
And thank you, Scott. Are there any current state-funded or sponsored insurance options available for those homeowners that aren't able to find any private carriers? There is not a state option at this point. There's been some discussion about the creation of an insurer of last resort or other opportunities for homeowners, particularly homeowners, to find an avenue in order to get insurance. Any of those types of solutions would be legislatively driven or suggested by the governor through the governor's office in potential legislation. We at the division have looked at and have studied some of these options and certainly stand ready to provide our expertise to those decision makers. But this would be a legislative driven solution that you're talking about. So those homeowners and those realtors out there listening just need to talk to their local assembly and congressmen and women, correct?
your state assemblyman, state senator is certainly, we believe that this, should be a state-driven solution. There has been some discussion on the federal level that perhaps the federal government should get involved in either some sort of fund or reinsurance program. I think that's a little premature at this point, but certainly that's an option that could be available in the future.
Scott, you mentioned how Nevada is kind of getting painted with the same insurance risk that California is because of all of their tremendous losses from their extreme wildfires. I'm under the impression that the history, Nevada has never had a significant number of homes lost to wildfire. Can you confirm that? And what's the largest loss on record for the state of Nevada in homes?
Okay, great question, and I think you're absolutely right. I think, especially here in northern Nevada, we get painted with the same brush. Understand that insurance companies, to a degree, look at and set their rates based on a handful of things. One is access. Is there a system of roads and access for firefighters to get to these risks? The second is slope. As we know, fire tends to travel up a slope and is driven by wind. So those factors really come into play when determining what a rate is or the level of access a carrier wants to provide. And if you look at, obviously, the Tahoe Basin, it looks a lot like the fire-prone areas in California. So we do suffer from that. However, in answer to your other question, I think the most significant fire event that we've ever had in Nevada is somewhere between 30 and 40 residences at one time. And it just does not happen here in the past. Over the course of the last at least 10 years, Nevada has proven to be a pretty profitable place for insurance carriers to write homeowners policies, even up until this last year. Most recently, with the Davis fire here in northern Nevada, just outside of Reno, was a significant fire event that burned up, over, I believe, 8,500 acres. Well, we only lost 11 residences and 3 additional outbuildings. So to me, that tells me a couple things. One, that our State Division of Forestry, in working with other jurisdictions, have done a really great job of managing the fuel in burnable combustible materials on the forest floor. Two, I think and we've had numerous discussions with the local firefighting teams from South Lake, Lake Tahoe, Truckee Meadows, and they do a tremendous job of anticipating, but also knocking down these fires. I think the public owes a great debt to those entities that have done such a terrific job in knocking down these fires. But, the short answer is yes, we've not had any significant fire events. Does that mean we won't? I don't think so. Again, if you didn't know where the state line is and you looked at the issues on the east side of the lake or the south side or north side of the lake, it does look a lot like California, where they've had some significant fire events.
Yeah. Has the state had any luck in encouraging these insurers about the differences in Nevada property and geography and how our forests are maintained and how our defensible space systems are maintained, in encouraging those insurers to come back into our markets and not paint us with the same brush as our neighbors?
Well, I wouldn't say it's luck. We have discussions with these carriers often. We had a major carrier indicate to us that they were going to non-renew a significant number of policies in northern Nevada, all the way from Elko down the I-80 corridor to Reno, and then up the mountain to Incline, South Lake, and other areas. I think they have rethought the number of properties or risks that they're going to non-renew. Part of it has to do with that issue of concentration we talked about a little before. And I think part of it has to do with looking at the Nevada marketplace and our history and saying, well, maybe we don't need to diminish our footprint as much as we have had originally planned. So there is some certainly ongoing discussions with carriers, but again, this is a free market world in which we live, and if they so choose, if they give consumers the proper notice, they can indeed do what they wish as far as non-renewing.
And what is that proper notice, Scott? I know that in like a car insurance situation, an insurance carrier has to continue the policy through the end of it, regardless of claims or anything else. Is that the same with homeowners insurance?
Homeowners, no, it's a little bit different. Homeowners insurance, the current statute provides that if you give a homeowner a 30-day notice, you can cancel that policy. We're going to propose to the legislature to extend that number to at least 60 days. I think it's terribly fair to consumers, terribly unfair to consumers, given the challenges of finding insurance to do that in a short 30-day window. So we think that extending that window by doubling it will give consumers a little bit more of an opportunity to find a policy that fits their needs and pocketbook.
That's great. Thank you, Scott. Are there any, we talked about how homeowners are likely going to be asked to do some defensible space around their properties in order to get some better insurance options. Are there any programs available, incentives or price reductions or rebates available from the state to help owners with some of those costs? Because, removing some large trees from parcels and even digging up lawns can be expensive.
Yeah, I mentioned that the voluntary mitigation that is, being identified and I want to say rewarded by insurance companies to consumers if they do a level of mitigation that the company approves or will take under consideration when they set their rate. And I think that's, again, just getting started here in the state, and that I think just over the last couple of months that carriers are now starting to recognize that and make those offers. There really is not a state-based program at this point that would pay consumers to do that level of mitigation, but there is some precedent across the country for such a thing. Very familiar with what is going on in the state of Alabama, for example, where they have a program that will provide up to $10,000 for residents near the Gulf Coast to do a little bit more hurricane proofing on their properties. This is that ounce of prevention that saves that pound of trouble. It is a program that's really being embraced by Alabamans, and it's starting to spread to other Gulf Coast states. Whether we can do that in Nevada, I think, is a little bit longer range goal. Certainly, it comes with a price tag that would have to be addressed and figured out how to pay for such a program, likely through the legislature. So one of those things, it's one of those let's stay tuned. But I think, it's going to be a little bit longer term issue for the state.
And we've been talking a whole lot about homeowners insurance for single family homes. Can you briefly discuss, we're hearing a lot of issues with larger, especially condominium complexes with, multiple of hundreds of units in the complexes, having major issues finding full replacement policies for those properties. Does the state insurance commissioner have any oversight into, the commercial properties of condo complexes?
That's a terrific question, Grant. And the way that the commercial market, first of all, those risks, those condominiums, multifamily dwellings, and apartment buildings are considered commercial properties rather than homeowners properties. And that designation is significant because the Nevada revised statutes don't allow the level of oversight on rates that it does on the homeowners. And again, this is not unique to Nevada. Every state in the country regulates those commercial properties fairly similarly, which then gets to the challenges that you just mentioned, is that carriers are looking at these individual properties and do an individual level of underwriting on those properties. And we're seeing more and more challenges. I think, as you know, we did a town hall meeting in late June in Incline Village, and had several discussions with condominium owners up there and the challenges they were having on getting coverage. I mentioned the 2 data calls that we did. We've done a third to look at this, it's called commercial habitational, but it's the condo apartment buildings and what's going on in that marketplace. We're seeing, obviously there are fewer carriers in that space, and those fewer carriers, again, are because of the same issues that affect the homeowners marketplace. There are fewer and fewer carriers writing business. We don't have the ability to provide much more oversight, and I know that is a question that we get often here at the division. What can be done? And again, it's the same answer, at least at this point: shop, and then shop some more, because that's the best way to find additional coverage. Unfortunately, in the issues around those units unit owners that we spoke to during the town hall, they're seeing significant rate increases if they can even get coverage at all.
Scott, thank you for that, Scott. And I know that it's frustrating to hear, but you're only able to be involved on what your regulatory path is enabling. So we know you're doing the best you can on that side. We're seeing that maybe some carriers are coming back to the market. What do you see? Homeowners are asking: Are things going to get worse before they get better? Are things already on the upswing and getting better? Are we seeing? What look into your crystal ball, Scott? I know that they always don't work, but what do you project? Are things going to get easier next year or even harder?
Well, I am going to the eye doctor next week and probably need to change the prescription. But way I'm seeing things now, I don't anticipate things are going to get worse. Now, whether I think they're going to get better, that I think is the half empty, half full glass that we're looking at. I don't think it's going to get worse. I do know that there are carriers who are still writing, that are taking on those additional properties. We are in close contact with a number of carriers to make sure that there are as few regulatory hurdles for them to continue writing or to enter into writing. We've had conversations with a couple of carriers that are, kind of kicking the tires on Nevada to see if they want to apply for a certificate of authority to do business here. We assure them that this is a great place from a regulatory viewpoint in order to do business.
And profitability, correct?
You just took the words right out of my mouth. It's a very profitable place in order to do business. So we're encouraged by that, but whether or not it will get better exponentially soon, I think it's a little too early to say.
Backtracking really quick, I just had an idea. You discussed how historically there hasn't been a major loss event in Nevada, and so there's not a giant risk realistically associated with insuring in Nevada compared to other states historically. Is there any way that Nevada would consider being that secondary insurer, and that could encourage more companies to move in to the marketplace, because there really isn't a ton of risk available for the state being a secondary insurer for some of these primary carriers?
That again gets back to the question kind of touched on earlier is, what could the state do as far as creating a program of insurer of last resort or something like that. I know in California, they have what they call the state fair plan. Colorado is launching a fair plan right now. I'm not sure of, whether or not that is something that, again, would have to be legislatively approved. But could the state do something like that? Yes. I think the startup price tag for that would be significant. And there's a lot of details that would have to be, looked at and worked out. But I mean, could the state do that? Yes. Will the state do that? I think that's a different question.
All right. I've dominated the questioning. Anybody have any other questions for Scott?
Great. You've done an amazing job.
This is something we've been working on up here for years. And I really appreciate Scott's work on this process. We know that it's a long, arduous journey, and he's fighting the good fight for all Nevada homeowners. And
well, before you change that subject, let me just say that I think the state of Nevada, in particularly the division here, is incredibly blessed to have a tremendous staff of insurance experts that are contributing a lot of input into what we're working on here. It's not just one person or a small subset of people. It is a great number of seasoned professionals who are looking at this issue from several different viewpoints, contributing, asking a lot of good questions, right questions. Grant, like you have today, is how do we do it? What's it going to look like? What's it going to cost? What's the take-up rate going to be? What's the industry? How is the industry going to react? All of those viewpoints need to come into play when you're talking about a solution here on this issue. So it's not just one person. It is the entire division that's working on this.
Well, thank you for the Division of Insurance. That's for sure. We need your help.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned that, Nevada is a great place, and, the steps that you all are taking to make sure that carriers know that. Are there any other incentives, any other conversations on, ways to not just attract carriers that have been here before, but retain them? Like anything else outside the box that we can work on, whether it's legislatively or through regulation?
Well, Tiffany, that's a great question, and it's something that we, as a group, talk about. What else can we do? And I've always maintained that, our only limitation is our lack of imagination. Nevada, for example, is a significant captive insurance domicile, a hub. And, captive insurers have a little bit more leeway to be a little bit more creative with the risks that they underwrite and the way that they do things. So just as an example, if there were individuals that wanted to get into this marketplace and use the captive framework, that could, provide some relief in certain areas. And that's just a small example. But I think as far as, being available for, any other types of solutions, I think the sky is the limit. It will just take a little bit of thought and willpower from some entrepreneurs to come in and try to figure this out.
Well, we appreciate, again, the partnerships, keeping the door open for us so that we hopefully can have some thought leaders as, because this is a conversation, again, that, Jenny and Grant and Brandon have had for a long time now around these issues. And so anything that we can think through and bring to you all, thank you for having the door open for us for these discussions. We really, again, appreciate you, your time, your team's energy behind it. So thank you.
Well, we are blessed to live in a great state where that level of collegiality and collaboration exists. We try to embrace that, and all the partners that we have, from insurers to brokers to realtors to bankers to consumers, as how can we best make this situation a bit better? So we appreciate the opportunity today to sit down with you and kind of share a few things. And as you mentioned, we look forward to continued collaboration and thought leadership from the realtor world.
Absolutely. We always want to keep the consumer and their best interest at the forefront of everything that we do. So thank you. Jenny and Brandon, do you have anything else to add?
I learned a lot today, and I've learned a lot over the time. Grant staying on top of it, and Carrera keeping us posted on all the issues. And I know you got a tough job because there's a fine line between too much regulation, protecting the consumer, and scaring insurance companies off that way, as well as keeping it friendly for them to insure here in Nevada. So we appreciate all you do.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I will share that with the team.
Commissioner, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate the open door policy, as Tiffany said, and you having the willingness to come and talk to all of our realtor members and us on a regular basis. So thank you, and just let us know what we can do to help you.
We will certainly do that, and thanks again.